Welcome to our viewers from around the world. My name is Toyin Awesu Uwebu, and I will be your host this evening for tonight's AFRICON Roundtable discussion on Africa's vibrant and rapidly growing creative economy and ways Prosper Africa can support this sector and so much more. So let's get into it. I'll start with an introduction of each one of our panelists, starting with Audu Maikori. He is a multi-award-winning lawyer and entrepreneur and founder of Chocolate City Music Group, one of Africa's biggest media and entertainment companies. Next up, we have Makani Tungara. She's senior advisor for USAID. And for the USAID's Africa Bureau, she has over 14 years of international and economic development and management consulting experience in the private and nonprofit sectors. Next up, we have Osei Oyameda. He's a filmmaker based in Los Angeles, Lagos, and London. He is a founder of Nollywood and Hollywood, an annual film festival that highlights Nigerian filmmakers and their work in Los Angeles. And lastly, we have Jay Engben. He is an investor and currently building a studio in Africa. So thank you, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am looking forward to an engaging conversation on Africa's creative economy, especially the film and TV industry, which is rapidly growing. And so, we'll have a great conversation around this and also ways that Prosper Africa can support this initiative. So let's get into it. I figure since we're doing a panel focused on the creative economy, I'd like to start off by asking each of you to tell me what your favorite African movie or TV show is. Osei, you can be biased if you like, and I'll go first. So for me, it was the digital and web series in African Cities. Some of you may remember it. I loved it. It was based in Ghana. So I'll ask you, Audi, what is your favorite African movie or TV show? Hold on one second. I think we've got you on mute.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you now.
Yes, I was saying, thanks for having me. I was saying that my favorite Nollywood movie is called Bling Lagosians. It was shot by Bolanle Austin Peters. I loved the movie, so that's mine.
Great, thanks. Makani, what was your favorite African film or TV series?
A TV series I binged last year, COVID binging, was Queen Sono on Netflix. Based in South Africa. It was just joyous to see a female spy thriller, and just really brought a lot of joy.
Yeah, it was a great series. I binge watched it too. Osei, what was your favorite? And like I said, you can be biased.
Well, I'm gonna try not to be biased because of Nollywood and Hollywood. I really can't say favorite movie, but my favorite TV series, I have to go way back. There was something when I was growing up they called Ripples on TV in Lagos.
Oh.
And when I was old enough and have enough maybe clout to ask for it, I watched old Village Headmaster. So I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was definitely an era of great TV shows. As you know, Nigeria's TV production was booming and definitely one of the first to get out. So Jay, we'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite African TV show or movie?
Actually, it's one that just came out recently called God Calling.
Oh, good one.
Netflix. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was definitely a breaking through for Nigerian production because they kind of upped the level. So I enjoyed that film.
Great. Yes, it was also a really good movie. I watched it. So I think we can all agree that Africa's creative economy, especially in the film and TV sector, has gotten us through these last couple of months where many of us have been on lockdown, but even from years ago, and just seeing the growth of this sector. So let's get this conversation started. I'd like to turn to you, Makani, to just talk a bit more about the Prosper Africa initiative and how is this initiative positioned to support diaspora businesses who are looking to invest in Africa's creative space, or even businesses in Africa looking to identify investors interested in the creative economy. So, looking for cross-border growth. How can Prosper Africa, or what is Prosper Africa about, and how can Prosper Africa assist?
Great, thank you, Toyin, and I'm so excited to be here with the esteemed panel this evening. So I appreciate the invitation to join. Prosper Africa is a one-stop shop for trade and investment resources offered through the U.S. government. We recognize that there are strong opportunities in the creative economy and are interested in connecting with more businesses and investors like my co-panelists here with me. Prosper coordinates across 17 different agencies to provide 4 key things. First, market intelligence. Second, deal support. Third, financing. And 4, solutions to strengthen the business climate. Because we now have Prosper, which now resides one place, you can figure out, you don't have to go to different websites for different agencies to figure out, where you might be able to get resources. You don't have to waste your time doing that. Everything is really now centralized in one place, whether you're looking to trade or invest. The program was launched in 2019, and since then, the US government has helped close 500 two-way trade and investment deals across 44 countries on the continent, and those deals were worth an estimated $47 billion. And we're looking to build on that momentum now. Most of the deals supported were not directly in the creative economy, but we see opportunities for businesses and investors in this space to really leverage US government resources, some of which they just may not even be aware of. Most of the deals that have been done, many of the deals actually do address challenges limiting the growth of the creative economy. So they include energy deals, and digital deals and physical infrastructure deals as well. We're interested in exploring how our toolkit, the US government toolkit, can better support the creative economy and creative economy deals. We do have a current couple of opportunities in the works right now, but we definitely want to build and expand on that. The Biden-Harris administration believes in the nations of Africa and its diaspora, and we see strong opportunities for trade and investment between the United States and the continent. During President Biden's comments to the AU summit, he said, we must all work together to advance our shared vision of a better future, a future of growing trade and investment that advances prosperity for all of our nations. And the Biden-Harris administration understands the critical role that the diaspora plays in achieving that shared prosperity, which is why we're here today. So thanks.
Thank you, Makani. And I think you made a very, very interesting point about, Prosper Africa being a one-stop shop. There are lots of resources, lots of tools that are available, from fundraising, market intelligence, preparing your business to go into, different countries on the continent. And so these resources are available to diaspora businesses. And so, I think one of the things we'll get into here a bit more as well, along with the conversation, is also being able to share what some of those resources are. And of course, by visiting prosperafrica.gov, to learn more about the tools and resources that are available through the U.S. government. So I'm going to kick this over to Audu to just talk a little bit about, life, with Chocolate City Music Group. I'm sure you've experienced it all as it pertains to the development of Nigeria's entertainment sector. And so I just want to, hear from you. What has been your biggest challenge, and how do you see, and what do you hope for the U.S. government in terms of better supporting this sector? Tell me, what are the bright spots, and why would you see, and why should the U.S. government be looking at this industry seriously? I think that's also something that, people in the creative economy space also have a bit of, work that they're doing as well to highlight why this sector is very important to invest in. It's just as serious as, ICT, healthcare. This is also a sector that can generate large revenues of funds, and so and job creation and so forth. So I'd love to just hear from you. I know that was a loaded question with a lot of sub questions in it, but it's over to you now.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for me, I think just going back a bit, and just to sort of what Osei talked about, he talked about Ripples and Village Headmaster and some old series that used to define and used to propagate the African culture. About 20 years ago, the creative economy was zilch in Africa. Most people looked at people who were in the creative economy as people who couldn't get blue-collar jobs. They couldn't be accountants or lawyers and things like that. So I'd say that the biggest part of that has changed across Africa is the perception of the creative industries and people who work in that sector. It's a very key thing, a very key point, because I can remember growing up, your parents would tell you, oh, you need to be a doctor. You know, you want to be a musician? Hell no. You know, there's so much stigma around doing those things that we are passionate about. But today we find that there's a huge change. Everything from gaming to TV to film to tech companies and creating jobs for millions and millions of people. So, I mean, with the Chocolate City story, I mean, we're a media company, so we also do film and TV. But music was our first foray. And what we found was that there was a dearth of skills. We don't have creative economy focused schools. For example, there are no proper film schools in places like Nigeria. Maybe only South Africa has a proper film school. Many of them are you learn on the job. When you think about music, there aren't music schools. Most people do either in the UK or in America. So that's lacking as well. But the beauty of it is that Africans are very innovative. So give them something, they will turn it to something else. So literally, you give them some prints, like the background of this screen now, and they made it fashion. Now the coolest stuff is, is these prints, right? But aside from that, there's a key focus on moving from just purely educational skills to vocational skills. So think about the movie industry. If you're doing a movie today, you need to create a set. You need to create, you need costumers, you need people in fashion, you need people to design the scenes, you need people who score the music itself. The problem is that there aren't opportunities and there aren't many institutions that actually do that purely on an educational basis. So we need to upscale that. Then copyright and IP protection is a huge, huge thing. If you look around most of the regions of Africa, you'll find that there aren't enough cinemas, right? And sometimes the cinema is too expensive for the regular people, for the average person who's going to be watching a film. So what they do is that they pirate. In Lagos, Nigeria, whereas in Ghana, even in Kenya, in Tanzania maybe 10 years ago, and they were selling everything from DVDs to brand new albums on the street, pirated. So that used to be a big issue. But I think with streaming, one part of the problem is solved, but another issue now arises, which is around access to the internet itself, access to high fiber optics, cables, and things like that. But I think the other key thing that is quite important to note is that a lot of the consumption is not within Africa. So I'll give an example. There's a company called AFRICON. It's one of the biggest independent digital distributors on the continent. According to statistics in 2020, 85% of the streaming that is across all the platforms came from the US and the UK, not from Africa itself. So just being able to create a local distribution network not only makes sure that there's more money internally, but also refines the product for export. Now, in terms of the kind of support I think an organization like Prosper Africa can give, is exactly that. Market intelligence is important. Many people are making money from the Netflixes and the Amazons because we don't have local platforms to actually promote these films as much as these international ones. So the question then is, what kind of support can we get in terms of better budgets, the infrastructure to create better content across film and TV? Because if you look at the typical African production, it's usually done in houses or in apartments. So the sound quality is lost. You're not able to maneuver, in terms of the camera. And I mean, Ose will tell you a bit more about that on the technical part as well. So I think it's just really around, one, how do we get the financing, right? And make sure that there are outlets to also exploit the content itself. Then there's the point around training, around skills acquisition, around these schools that will teach people how to do it. Because most people learn on the job, and that isn't how it should be. And finally, it's really around the perception of what Africa brings to the table. The typical African film is not about genocide or murder and stories about slave trade. It's nice, but the newer stories that talk about the new Africa, they're a bit more expensive, but they actually change perceptions. Look at what Black Panther did for the perception of Black people across the world. So we think that there's an opportunity to get more investment, get more skill support, and more importantly, in terms of copyright enforcement and protection, we need all the help we can get to ensure that creatives can monetize what they create.
Thank you. You really touched on a lot of different aspects about the sector, and that's why we're here today. I think that for some of the challenges that you've addressed, the great thing is that there actually are some resources that are out there that are available to diaspora businesses here that are going back to the continent to invest in this space. And so there's a variety of them, and from grants, but also IP protection training. There's some cross-learning initiatives, and I'm actually gonna I'm gonna put this back to Makani real quick, because I'd love for her to just like share that what we're doing, what the U.S. government is doing, so that our listeners and viewers can actually become aware of these resources that are available to them. And of course, after here, they can go check them out on the website.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple of resources quickly in response to that intervention. One in particular, the State Department has an annual film showcase, American Film Showcase, that brings together individuals in the American film industry and to countries around the world for peer-to-peer learning opportunities and dialogue about underlying global issues that are illustrated through film. In a recent cycle, 9 partner countries from the continent were represented, including Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Ghana, Guinea, Malawi, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, and Uganda. So spaces like that, I think, create opportunities to highlight not just the content creators, but the partners that they're bringing to the table, as well as you seek to build out the platforms for these products on the continent. So I think that that's definitely taking advantage of these kinds of spaces to spread the good word about the great content and partnership on the continent are important. Another one is the State Trade Expansion Program. So through that mechanism, it's actually through states, and those states support U.S. small businesses to export, support website globalization and e-commerce capabilities, pay for subscription to services provided through the Department of Commerce, and to participate in export trade shows and exhibits and training workshops. So for diaspora businesses in particular, again, these are mechanisms that can be leveraged to build out the brand and gain more attention for those types of platforms and businesses. So thank you.
Thanks, Makani. And again, a lot of this information you can find it on prosperafrica.gov. You'll probably have to dig some bit, go through our toolkit. But what we want to make sure that we're also doing is reaching the diaspora, letting people know that these tools and resources are available. Prosper Africa is here to help you, expand your business as you look at different markets on the continent. And so we want to make sure that we're also a resource, and you're able to access those resources through the U.S. government. So over to I actually lost my place real quick. So I'm going to ask Osei a question. I'd love to, just get a bit more info on your experience, and why do you think there's been such an interest in African stories by American digital media platforms? So Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, to feature African generated content. So as a filmmaker, how do you consolidate producing content for an African audience, but also a global audience? Uh-oh, one more second. You're on mute as well.
Am I on now?
All right, you're on now.
Okay. Well, I was saying, these big streamers in Africa, they're telling African stories, not just because they love Africa now, but because African story, Black stories sell. It travels, we are not just this group of people that are boxed in by the Atlantic Ocean in one part of the world and the Indian Ocean. We actually have like hundreds of millions of Africans or tens of outside of Africa, and they have a lot of capital that they spend. So I think that's why they are spending more and they're showing more of African content. Now, we have to go beyond that and ask how are they helping to sustain that industry that produces that content? Because when you pay somebody in Africa to produce something $10, and then you give somebody in another part of the world to produce that same content $100, you are not growing the African industry. You're just taking advantage of it. So that's something that really needs to be addressed, because I see a lot of people saying, oh, we're doing this, but I still see the content creators. Their life has not changed that much. They're still running around trying to get money to make films. It's like they live from film to film. Here, if I do a film now, I can basically take off like a couple of years to develop something else. In Africa, we don't have that luxury. It's like once this is done, you have like September is coming. The kids are going to school. So we got to make something quickly so we can pay for the school fees of the kids. So in that fashion, you don't have the opportunity to improve content, because this is just like factory. It's a fast food thing. So I would think like I just want to go beyond that a little bit, like Prosper Africa and other people that are interested, that want to help that sector grow. Because if it grows, it takes people a lot of people off the streets. A lot of people depend on that industry. So if you can like take 5 people off the streets, I always say if you give 5 people employment in Lagos, you're basically employing 20 people that are dependent on them. So if you to help there, it's like, how do we facilitate training so that whatever they bring out is better? Like what we do at, I don't know if I can say, what we do at Nollywood in Hollywood was like, we wanted to like show the films, because people don't know what it is. When I first started telling people about Nollywood and stuff, they're like, yeah, we read about that, but what really is it in this town? So we bring the films here, and the first year we did it was really hard. Dami and Amplify Africa and the other guys just run around just to like drum people to come and see it, So we bring the film here, so the industry actually came to see it. And we have big partners, USC and the Egyptian theater, so they came. The second year, we're on front page of LA Times, that this show is coming on, and so there's that exposure. But what do we do after that? How do we go there and help these people? Maybe in terms of giving them grants, and $10 in America is like 4,500 in Nigeria. So it stretches, it goes a long way. How do we get the African loving investors in America to like invest maybe in bonds or whatever it is to like just help build the facility, build the technical and human infrastructure? So that will help a long way, because we have like a period now that it seems a lot of people want things from Africa. If it doesn't improve, they will move on. People talk about Netflix, Amazon, YouTube. There were other people in Africa before. What those people just failed to do was to reach across to the Africans in diaspora. And the African diaspora is not just African-born people. It's like there's massive number of people in the Caribbean, in Brazil, all those places. I mean, I've been to a favela before in Rio, and I was hearing a Nollywood show playing. And I went there. They didn't even know what they were saying, but they were following it, because we all have a common history. And this is how our brothers and sisters outside Africa learn about their origin. These films that some people back home actually disparate. This is how they learn about them. Now, the other part of the question is, how do you consolidate producing content for African? Yeah, but story is story. I always say story is story. It's like music. Like, how do we probably talk more about that? It's like music. Like, 10, 20 years ago, nobody knew about African music. Now you're on, now you're on the train or you're on the street, you hear African music because it has a rhythm. Like, we are a different set of people. And you also need to remember that the people that wrote the history of the world wrote it in a way that seems as if Africa started when Mongo Park came into Nigeria or that kind of stuff. But we've been able to, I mean, our fathers and mothers have been able to pass those stories on. So telling story is in our genes. We just don't have the opportunity to tell it in a proper way. And that's why I think people like Prosper Africa can help. They can gather people, like do a trade show, whatever they call, and like say, these are the slate of stories they want to tell. How do you help? You know, if they can help, I mean, if they have 3 great stories out of Africa in a year, that 3 will start getting multiplied, because when investors see they can make money on those things, they will start putting money on that. But the industry needs help. And it's and it's not a lot of money, by the way, because you need like 2 million to do a low budget movie here. $500,000 will do a fantastic movie there, and you get your returns. Thank you.
Yeah, you really highlighted a lot of really important things, especially the aspect of, you know, the wide reach of the diaspora, the stories that are to be told, and how those stories are also well received, you know, globally, and what that translates to in terms of a return on your investment. I think what we have seen is that even during the pandemic, this sector has continued to grow. This sector has, you know, people have put in more investments to closing the gaps in different areas of different aspects of this sector, so that it can really reach its full potential. And I really like the aspect of the job creation opportunities. And we'll also address, I know Makani will probably address some of the questions around one of your biggest challenges, which is raising capital. And so, you know, there's various tools and resources, again, through Prosper Africa, that, you know, may be of interest, that could also help in addressing that challenge. But I want to ask Jay, I want to go over to you, since we haven't spoken to you this evening. You're actually investing on the continent and addressing one of the major challenges, which is infrastructure. And I want you to tell us why you opted, you know, for this, developing a studio, and what other infrastructure investment opportunities do you see that you think that, you know, if you're a U.S. investor who's considering the creative economy in Africa, where should they put their money? And Jay, I just want to make sure that you're not on mute. Jay, are you there? Okay, we'll come back to you in a few minutes, and hopefully we'll get the issue sorted out with your camera. So I do want to go to Makani, and also just to, you know, talk to you, if you could tell us a bit more about those tools and resources that Prosper Africa offers to, you know, people who are looking to invest in this space. So if you're here in the, you know, in the United States, and you're looking to invest in Africa's creative economy, what's out there for them? And if you could maybe even talk a bit more about the risk insurance, and which can help you know, de-risk capital raising, especially through traditional banking, which I know several people have mentioned that that's been one of the challenges.
Looks like it shows back.
Jay, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Can you hear
All
me?
right. Well, yes. Makani, you want to hold on, and then I'll hand it over to Jay. Are you settled? You good to go now?
Yeah. Hello.
Yep.
Hello,
Got
guys.
those
Can you hear
blinding
me?
lights back there. Yes, we can hear you.
Really sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yes. So Yeah, I'm currently in Ghana at the moment, and yes, it's the potential is absolutely enormous. And yes, what brought me out here was actually 2018, when Black Panther had come out, and the diaspora, I would say, definitely made this proper entrance into the world. And I would say that because we really did see the support of the diaspora get behind such an amazing product like Black Panther. And this is where the potential kind of started, and we started to realize that, wow, there's actually a market here for African content that's actually commercial. Now, obviously, I'm being very specific here because it's not something that we've actually explored, because the level of content at the moment is still pretty, I would say, local. But I think with the others, what they're trying to do is higher quality cameras, but actually the process that's being used is still quite traditional. And from an executive point of view, I feel like this is the thing that needs to be introduced a bit more into Africa's infrastructure, understanding the business side of the film industry, rather than just the creative side. So what we tried to do was put the right things in place, the right platforms in place, which can build a creative economy, such as the studio. Now, one of the other reasons why we came out here and decided to start investing in not just companies, but talent that we could kind of turn into companies, was the fast growing youth population. Now, this is another really untapped market here in Africa. But by 2030, Africa is going to have the largest youth population. And there is not many creatives that have targeted this part of this part of the market, or the audience, I would say. Most youth over here they're actually more focused on more kind of Western content. They like Nickelodeon, they like stories like that. They don't really watch many African products, and I would say that was just simply because of the quality. And it's obviously not Africans' fault, it's just the lack of resources. So what I'm trying to say is, to be able to kind of see this growing market, or this growing trend that's fast approaching us, we can actually position ourselves in a better position to be able to kind of collaborate more with international organizations in the development process of our content. Just for me to kind of break that down a little bit more as well, is we have so many beautiful books here, and those books have not been converted into movies. We have so many stories that have not been converted into documentaries, series, animations, you name it. I mean, there is so much IP opportunity here, and things like not having a studio that facilitates a lot of these things, or even the systems in place to facilitate these things are not in place. So we definitely need more people looking to invest in the platforms that create these jobs. And a studio, again, is one of those things. And it also attracts creative talent. And I think one of the best things is it brings in high level production resources, which when I say that, I mean, at the moment, when you look at the process for African production, we do quite a lot of things ourselves. We do a lot of things ourselves. But, in the process of how people are doing productions in Atlanta, or, in Hollywood, or in London, there is a lot of international collaboration, which facilitates other people coming in. For example, sometimes let's say it's an action movie, they would, call in somebody from, I don't know, India or China, or there's a lot more international collaboration going on when it comes to the process of production. Whereas over here, it's very local. We kind of just do a lot of the stuff ourselves. And I'm only talking about mass production. I'm not trying to pigeonhole everybody into one point, but there are a few that do think about, you know, doing things like this too. But the vast majority of, I would say, filmmakers in this space are doing a lot of the stuff themselves. So I think if we have the right platforms in place, such as a studio, we can start implementing different type of processes, or processes that will allow us to reach a wider audience, if you kind of get where I'm coming from. So
Yeah. And you're an investor. So, you know, from a money perspective, you would say that this kind of investment is can also draw high, or rather yield high returns for someone in this sector. Because I do think that, I mean, I've been on you know, listening to different panels where people say, you know, well, can it really generate funds? Can it really, you know, generate large large amounts of money? And I do think that when you're seeing the big companies like the Netflix and the Amazons going into this space, it's an indication that there is a huge potential, I guess, if you have your value chain, you know, streamlined effectively.
yes, there is a lot of potential when it comes to the returns. Another really interesting thing I found was the actual development process of, you know, just getting something IP'd or focus on the IP, compared to trying to raise money for production. This is another thing that, again, this is why we wanted to have a studio. We actually found that investing in the development, or, you know, getting it to a point where the script is to a, you know, a certain level, and just that part of the process where we would say nothing to do with the production, just the development. So the script, the IP, the research, you know, just getting the product to tip-top shape, is you spend exactly the same amount of money that you would spend on, you know, a production for let's say a local film. So for example, let's say you spent $500,000, or you spent $500,000 or 100,000 on a local production. You could spend exactly the same amount of money that you would spend on a local production on the development part of the process, which actually allows you to raise more funds for the production, you know. But without a studio, it's quite hard to do that, you know. So it's like we're just trying to put ourselves in a position where we can actually implement some of the systems which benefit, I would say, executives, not just creatives.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So I'll turn it over to Makani. You know, I'd ask you a question right before Jay was coming on, to just talk a bit about some of the resources and tools from a fundraising side that, you know, is probably one of the main things a lot of people in this space are looking at, that we have, you know, available through the U.S. government. So if you could just shed some light on some of those tools, we'd love to hear about that.
Sure. So the Prosper Africa has a virtual deal room, which is a virtual platform funded by USAID that connects investors with select opportunities on the continent, and across the entire continent. And those investment opportunities have all been curated and vetted by on-the-ground experts, and we're constantly adding opportunities all the time. And so that's definitely a platform where deals that, you know, meet a certain threshold can get exposure to a wide variety of potential investors who are looking for deal opportunities. The Prosper Africa deal teams in the United States and at embassies across Africa are also standing by to help diaspora and African businesses and investors identify partners and advance opportunities and close deals. If you write into the Prosper system, you know, they can, based on your profile, channel you to the right set of folks and resources that are appropriate for the interests that you have. So if you go through the website and you reach out, there is a way to get channeled to the right people who can, you know, potentially discuss, you know, whether a certain deal or business qualifies for a type of support from the U.S. government. So The deal teams are there to provide that support. They also provide market intelligence, as I mentioned. And those teams are there to be trusted partners in whichever country you're doing business. In terms of ensuring that ideas and concepts are protected, so I think somebody mentioned IP, are the International Trade Administration, through its website stopfakes.gov, stopfakes.gov, initiative offers intellectual property training to help U.S. business owners protect their IP in export markets. So that's another resource that's available. An additional tool that's there to help raise capital is from the International Development Finance Corporation, DFC. They have a political risk insurance mechanism, which can be helpful if you're trying to secure financing through conventional banking. And so that insurance can mitigate and de-risk a bank's investment in your business. It can also address currency risk. And they also offer reinsurance to increase underwriting capacity. So I just list those as a way to illustrate, a few of the potential mechanisms and opportunities that are available to support businesses and to support the business of the creative economy. So if you come to prosperafrica.gov, that's where you'll be able to find contact information, how to reach out, and get some advice and guidance on which parts of how you can receive that support as a business. So thank you.
Thanks, Makani. That was a lot, and guess what? There's still so much more. And so, I think it's very important, for our panelists here, but also for those that are, watching, to just come and visit prosperafrica.gov. These resources are there, and I know at times a lot of things when it comes to the government, it's hard to find, but that's what we're here for. We're here to be that one-stop shop, so you can see all the different things that are available, if it's through this agency or additional agency, or you want to work with someone at the embassy. We're here to help and make that process smoother for you. But first, you gotta, come to us. So I did say I wanted to ask everyone this question, and I guess it's more so for the Prosper Africa team, is to just know from you regarding U.S.-Africa relationship. What would you like to see happen within 5 to 10 years? How do you envision a mutually beneficial relationship between the U.S. and African nations? So I'm going to call on Osei first, because he's a filmmaker, and I know he had a lot of ideas. And so again, this is just, we also want to hear from you all so that we can also look at, what we can work toward.
Well, I would say, really, like in Africa, we have an inbuilt disadvantage, which is lack of capital. And if you want to extend it, we also have a disadvantage in the kind of people that rule us, right? So if you want to help the people, the creative industry, the easiest thing to do is to support investment there. Try to train people. The whole thing about if you teach somebody to fish, you feed him for life. Because they used to do this. I mean, this used to be done through the USRS and all those bodies. So I think Africa needs and probably deserves a more respectable and nurturing relationship. Go to the people. There's always this fear that if we go to maybe a certain level or government or so, the money disappears. But when you have partners, when you go to people and say, this is what we're trying to do, this is a track record of what's been done, I think a lot can be done there. And it's true stories that should change perception of people. It's when there's stories that investors in agriculture, in finance and everything, that they get to know that country. Nobody really knows a place from looking at a map. They have to look, who are these people? So I think investment and helping tell those stories by supporting the industry will help a lot. And I think that will also change some of those perceptions that people have about Africa and about business and opportunities there.
Thank you. Audu, from your perspective, what would you like to see in the next 5 to 10 years as it pertains to a mutually beneficial U.S.-Africa relationship?
Thank you. I really think the relationship dynamic needs to be more, and like you said, that's the right word, mutually beneficial. I think there's been this perception over time that when you work with Africa, it's either for charity or for helping them out of some kind of capacity because we don't have. But the truth is that we do have. What we need iron sharpening iron. So it's really more about a more collaborative approach. And I'll give you some really interesting statistics. I recently started a company called Limitless Studios. It's an animation company. Interestingly, my partner is here in Los Angeles, and somehow this guy found these animators online. So he calls me one day and says, "Hey, how did you know such and such and such?" I'm like, "No," but he found them. He found them somehow, and they're doing some amazing animation. Indeed, he used these animators to do an advert for a multinational here in the States. And then now they're creating this whole series. And what we're doing is we're creating characters and accents and cultural stories around African stories. So instead of the perception of the superhero always being a certain color, it's about people that talk, look, and act like us. Now, in terms of the investment, right? The movie The Simpsons, the animation, it cost about $1,000 per second to produce that, and $1,000 per second to do The Simpsons. If you look at a movie like Toy Story, it's about $36,000 to produce a second of that animation. Now, with our animation studios, we're doing 1 second for about $10. So you see, when you look at the numbers, and the quality is amazing. I'll probably share the link so you guys can see some of what's going on. When you see that, then there's an opportunity to collaborate, meaning that why spend all that money elsewhere when you can actually grow and grow the capacity, grow the talent, get amazing talent. The other thing I'm involved in, I'm also part of an esports company based out of New York, called Unanimous Games. And the first set of games that we did, mobile games, we did them in New York. It cost us easily $50 something thousand to do one game. And then, sorry, to do the beta version of a game. So we later on found some amazing mobile app creators in Nairobi. And then we found some others in Ghana. And right now, the cost of those same games is probably 60-70% cheaper, and the quality has not been compromised. So these statistics, people need to understand that you're not just doing a favor, we're doing ourselves a favor. It's mutually beneficial. And if you can change that perception, you'll see that we'll both kind of sharpen each other and improve on the quality both sides. On the part of the people in the US, you're getting the same quality, improving lives, but doing it at a cheaper rate. And for those back home, you're expanding jobs, you're creating more talented people, or giving them the opportunities to actually discover themselves. And last but not least, you're building a legacy that still reinforces your culture in a world that is so doused with other, also so many mixed elements. So I think it needs to be symbiotic. I think it needs to be collaborative, and it needs to be looked at as a proper partnership and not charity.
Oops, let me unmute. Got just a few minutes left here, and we have a short Q&A, and so I just wanted to use this as an opportunity for us, and I keep saying us, but also for Makani to share any questions that she may have towards the panelists, because again, this is an opportunity for us for Prosper Africa to also hear directly from the creative economy. So Makani, I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Sure, thank you. And I'm inspired by your visions of the future. I'm inspired by the idea of African superheroes being as familiar to American children as The Simpsons, and really bringing all of that creativity and content around the world, so that we don't just have like Black Panther as like the one major diaspora export, we have so much more rich engagement in all types of mediums, really being able to bring that influence to, around the globe. So with that, my question for you is, what has been your experience seeking investment to build your businesses? And where are you seeing the gaps? We have Prosper. I think it's a huge step forward in terms of supporting diaspora businesses and making it easier to do business and get support. But where are you seeing the persistent gaps, and what's been your experience?
So who wants to address really the I guess your experience in seeking investments in this sector? Because again, this is a listening session for us. If we can learn more about what your experience has been like, I think that also helps. The Prosper Afro look at, okay, do we have the right tools? Do we need to create new tools? Do we need to adjust specific tools? So love to hear from anyone of you on your experience in trying to get and seek investments, or also partners to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had a few experiences looking for partners to work with here in Ghana, and at first, the idea of everything in regards to, I mean, for me, I was more pushing the commercial approach of African content, because I feel like our stories can be told, at a level where it reaches a bigger audience. So, my pitch is a bit different from other filmmakers, because mine is more from the executive approach. However, one of the things was, I mean, at first, the idea of everything made a lot of sense, but then every now and again we would find ourselves in a point where local investors don't fully understand some of the I would say just systems or processes of, I would say, the international scope of things. So that can be difficult. So for example, if you have like an idea or a place in terms of where you're going, an investor in America would understand things a little more than, let's say, an investor in Africa, because they're a bit more, I would say, close-minded when it comes to certain ideas or things you may want to do. So that's one of my experiences here.
Thank you. And I actually took note to that. Ose, did you want to respond as well? You're on mute. Okay, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it in two ways, because as a filmmaker, sometimes I think the way to go is that when you talk to investors, the term investors mean they're putting money in to get money out of it. So sometimes to do that in Africa, it's tougher, because here in Europe, they have grants, they have bonds, they have things that you can apply to just keep that cost down. And they have things that help support you as a creative professional. So I think in Africa, you need that. For instance, we're doing a film now that is about Africa, but it's big. For a couple of years, we couldn't get anybody to really talk really to us. Like, we got some little change here and there. And then we've got somebody, an executive producer, that's won 3 Academy Awards. So all of a sudden, that story nobody wants to really talk too much about. A lot more people want to, like, okay, so what's the possibility of this? So I think one of the things that Prosper Africa can help do, that we try to do with Nollywood and Nollywood, is to try and pair people from here with people there and see how they can crack that door open. And I will hope also that maybe the next time we really do Nollywood in Hollywood properly, we can actually get them involved to just talk to people that this is what we can do for you. This is a door that you can come into. And yeah.
Thank you. Please do keep us in mind for future opportunities. So we'll have time for one last question from our panelists to Makani here at Prosper Africa. If anyone has a final question, now's your chance.
Okay, maybe I'll go. Jay, you and I need to talk after this because I'm actually working on a studio project as well, but this time in East Africa, for the same reasons. My question is, what opportunities, in terms of the deal room and things like that, what ordinarily would be that process with Prosper Africa to speak with investors and people who might be able to support that project? Because I mean, it's one thing to build a studio, but the other thing is also about the pipeline. And if you look at how the studio space is across the continent, Morocco and Cape Town are the biggest studios right now. But it's really about a lot of Hollywood content that's been shot there. So when you think about Morocco, you're thinking Prison Break, Game of Thrones, and things like that. And Cape Town, you're thinking Captain America, I think, or Justice League. One of those things was shot there. So in terms of one, financing, secondly, the conversations with content production companies, and third, the sort of exposure that actually takes the content beyond just the continent and makes it truly global.
So you're asking really about the virtual deal room, the VDR, like how to
virtual deal room, thinking about what other support that makes sure that there's lots of deals coming back and forth between the continent, the cultural exchange part of it as well, and then skill, and then education and skills acquisition as well.
And then the last part, what'd you say?
I said skills acquisition because the other part of this is that the best way to learn film is to work in a film studio, literally. So just those strategic partnerships with companies in the US as well who might want to train or exchange trainings with other things in Africa.
So first, I would say in terms of creating opportunities for folks within the sector to have exchanges, particularly for connecting African businesses to diaspora businesses, the trade missions, trade missions really provide that mechanism for the exchange. And so as Prosper Africa, as we're looking to bring in more creative economy deals into the pipeline, I think there will definitely be an effort and a goal to reach out more to have trade missions include creative economy opportunities for connection and for trade shows and networking and matchmaking in that space. So I think that's definitely something that can be built out more. And I think to your point, it's about people knowing that those opportunities are there and really being able to build those relationships. And that's something that is already done. The Department of Commerce through its UX export assistance centers, already does that in a lot of other sectors. It's a regular thing. It's a mechanism that's well known and well done. I think it's really a question of training some of those resources to specifically focus on the creative sector and to really see the economic opportunities that are there and the potential that's there within the sector as well. So that would be my short answer in terms of the exchange. Now, in terms of skills and such, there are opportunities even beyond Prosper. If you're a U.S. business or U.S. industry looking for grants to do these kinds of things, the National Endowment for the Arts has mechanisms depending on which sub-region of the United States that you're in that can provide support for the development of programming and such. The State Department has its own Bureau of Cultural Diplomacy as well in terms of bringing some opportunities for artists from the continent to come here, but also to send artists from the United States to the continent. There's a huge emphasis now in the current administration to support diaspora linkages, across agencies. And so I think the State Department is looking at ways to how can they leverage all their different mechanisms to support the diaspora, to connect back to the continent, to be able to invest and support across, multiple sectors that are important to each of our economies. So I just say that to say they're there. I mean, those opportunities are there. I think there are people working really hard to make those things happen across our different agencies. USAID, has its trade hub work in terms of supporting and doing capacity building of African businesses. We're actually about to release a new mechanism later this summer that will be specifically targeted towards supporting African businesses to, well, amongst other things, but to do the kind of capacity building that would support African businesses to be able to engage in trade with the United States. So the opportunities are there. The Prosper window is really an opportunity to streamline people's ability to see what they may qualify for and just to make it simpler to engage going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Makani.
So can
And
I
go ahead, try. You're on. Jay, go ahead. You're on mute now.
Question that I had. Right, did you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, and this is just a question I had. Bit different question, but it also is very relative. Okay, we had a story that we were doing, and it's a story about a couple in Ghana in the 70s that was extradited by the US government, and basically we found that quite interesting. Why did this couple get extradited, and we did our research ourselves, and it was really interesting as to what happened and why they got extradited and blah blah blah. And through Prosper Africa, is there ways to, if we wanted to access a bit more information which would aid the stories, is this something that you'd be able to help us with too? Because obviously that does tie into, our process of developing content and again, still creating an economy because we're still creating jobs, making this type of content. So is this something that you guys would be able to facilitate too in regards to access to information from agencies that are, a lot easier for you to access than us?
So just to clarify, you're looking for which kind of stories? Just not exactly.
No, so for example, this was a story. It's actually a love story about a couple, but they were extradited in Ghana in the 70s by the US government. So they came to Ghana and took them away, but they're actually African American, and one was born in Mr. Alate was born in Ghana, and Mrs. Alate was born in Harlem, and they basically it was a huge cocoa trade type of organization that was going on, but they were like Bonnie and Clyde of Africa, basically in the 70s. So it's very hard for us to get some of the information in regards to what happened in the stories, because some information will be with agencies in America, which is kind of hard for us to get hold of that type of information. But at the end of the day, it's still an African story which has information in the hands of certain agencies in the US. So is this something that you'd be able to facilitate as well in regards to trying to get information that would facilitate stories?
So, okay, thank you for the clarification. At this stage, Prosper, I don't think is the right mechanism for that type of support. It's very much just focused on trade and investment, support mechanisms, financing, de-risking, skills building, export promotion, licensing, anything related to the business of in this case, for the purpose of this conversation, the creative economy or other business sectors. So I think for what you're trying to do, I'd have to think a little bit about where you might go. I'm not sure at this stage, but Prosper at this point doesn't have those mechanisms for sort of non-business sort of information gathering. So I'm sorry to not have a better response for you.
We are actually, thank you so much, Makani. I see your hand, Jose.
Yeah, it's for Jay. I think a starting point for you is you may just file the Freedom of Information request. If you file that, it will be a good start because that's what everybody will push you to. It's called a Freedom of Information request. You just send it, their names, what happened, which department, and you can start there.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, that's why we're here. So there's also, networking between panelists. We've learned a bit more about the growth opportunities in this sector, the challenges that people that operate in this sector face, but what are the tools and resources that are available to help grow this sector? You just have to access them. So we want to get this information out as much as possible, let people know the tools and resources that are available through the U.S. government, also for businesses in the diaspora that are looking to access these tools and resources, but also for businesses on the continent that are looking to also export here to the U.S. So there's so much. I would strongly encourage everyone to visit prosperafrica.gov. You can also find our contact information on there, and we will surely get back to you. So I want to thank everyone for their time this evening for this engaging conversation. Audu, Jay, Makani, Osei, thank you so much for your time. And to Amplify Africa, we thank you for this platform, and we look forward to the rest of the amazing events lined up for AFRICON 2021. Thank you for doing this. And everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.